Hello and welcome into the Six Again podcast, also doubling up as a LinkedIn site, both putting our hands up for Queensland coach because Paul Green will not be there next year.
Oof.
Here, hi, my name is Adam, the sarcastic Queensland Maroon supporter who is disappointed but not in the slightest way surprised.
I'm Jarrod and I am happy, content and stoked that we were able to do that Suncorp Stadium.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, everyone. I started with the wrong game.
He was talking about the women's ones. Which
No,
from a dodgy penalty.
I meant to start with the women's game. The very happy, very proud Queensland Maroon supporter with back-to-back series victory or game victories over those arch rival cockroaches from south of the border. Well done, girls. It played at Sunshine Coast Stadium, not Suncorp. But
it was a good game.
Yeah, it was a damn good game. But I guess we'll play the game at some point as well, if we have to.
The girls put on a better show than the men did. And they only won because of shit of a penalty in the last 2 minutes.
It was a penalty. It is a penalty.
It was a penalty.
Every minute of the game, it would have been a penalty. So
yeah,
to that, and what we're going to do for this episode, because it's a standalone State of Origin review episode. We're not going to cover any of the other news going on. We do have a preview show later in the week, leading into round 16, but we're going to try and do things a little bit differently and look at the games almost opposite to what public opinion is doing at the moment. And instead of talking all about what Queensland did wrong, we're really going to look at everything New South Wales did right, because we know that the media loves a negative story. So we're going to try and put a positive spin on things. And as a Queensland supporter, the second half of this show is going to suck.
Yeah, well, another part of it is if we went over Queensland, what they did wrong, we don't have 7 hours.
Oh, no, we can shorten and just say everything, but we want to analyse it a little bit more. We actually do like doing that. So we'll get to that. I have no beers because for some reason I needed to drink them all. So I've got no beer of the week this week, although we did post one in the preview session and it was damn good. So go back and have a listen to our preview episode if you want to and check out the beer that's on there. All right. I did not end up going to the women's game, Jarrod.
Didn't you?
Actually, no.
What happened?
The Sunshine Coast. We both live on the Sunshine Coast. However,
I do not.
Oh, yeah, okay. He's just outside it. But it had been fine for literally 2 weeks and then decided to start raining literally 2 days before. And because the match didn't start till 7:45, we have a 4 and a 3-year-old. We made the decision, you know what, it'd probably be more comfortable sitting at home and watching this than going out and sitting in the cold rain. And
is it? So what you're saying is I have at least another 5 to 6 years before I go to football games because my child would be born in December. And you can't take kids to 7:45 games.
No. See, younger, when they're like 0 to 1, yeah, probably, because they just have no idea what's going on. You can just rug them up and they can sleep. It's when you've got to provide attention for them when they're overtired, because they're usually in bed by 7. It's already 7:45 and the game's just starting and it's raining and you're standing.
It's as if the NRL aren't caring about time they put on sporting games. Funny story.
It's the best ratings.
Absolute bullshit.
So this is
I would have loved that game last night to be on at 6 o'clock. That would have been awesome.
I think 7's a good time, but 7:50 is starting to push it. We're different to a lot of overseas sports where their biggest revenue is on the gate because they get massive crowds all the time based on population. Australian sport relies on ratings. That's where the big money is. We're always going to...
You buy your ticket, you sit down and you shut up according, they don't... honestly.
Yeah, true. It's nothing about game day experience.
Sorry, you spend $14 on a hot dog.
Oh, that too.
Sorry, should have brought that up.
The upside on all that sort of stuff, the game rated very well. And I had it in here as well. Where is it? I had the data and all that sort of stuff. It was in the top 20 most viewed programs Australia-wide. And when you consider it's pretty much only watched in Queensland and New South Wales. So I think the spectate or the viewership in WA was like 3,000 compared to 200 and something thousand in New South Wales and Queensland. You look at the other 19 programs on there, you're looking at like 7 News, 9 News, the Chase Australia, all those sort of shows that are Australia-wide. The Women's Origin was in the top 20, which is huge for that time on a Friday night. And that's looking at just free to air. So it shows how much of the popularity of women's rugby.
Yeah, make it 3 games.
Yeah, should definitely make it 3 games. We're not going to talk. No, that's for the males game. So with regards to an actual game, positives. It was awesome seeing penalties. I actually got excited because the play stopped. They kicked it upfield and there was actually thought put into the set afterwards. And I love the fact it ended up, well, actually, no, I didn't love the fact it ended up 8-6, but it was a more entertaining game than the scoreline suggested. But it was nice going back to watch a game of footy where you had to earn field position and earn the points, as opposed to it just being a fatigue thing because of defense and a roll on and all that sort of stuff that we're used to seeing now. That part I really enjoyed because you got to see the play develop and the halves were really communicating, and mistakes actually meant something again. I feel that's one of the things that kind of has gone out the window a little bit, where you make a mistake, it sucks, like if you knock on or whatever, but you feel as though it's going to roll around pretty quick. Maddie, I'm forgetting the last name now off the top of my head, Studden,
Maddie Studden.
Halfback, Studden, yeah. Made 2 pretty uncharacteristic errors, both in the first half, both under minimal pressure, where she knocked the ball on, and you could see the frustration on her face and the disgust in herself because it was pretty hard to come by points. But when they were down in Queensland's end, the first try they put on showed what they could do with clean ball. So they took the ball to the post. New South Wales dominated the early running of the game. They got in a good field position. And then it was pretty much just a backline block move out to the left, give Isabel Kelly some early ball. And with her size and skill and strength, strongest woman in the league, supposedly, she just stepped inside. The defense was actually pretty good. There was solid contact.
She had to work
50 meters out. She had to work and then got a double-handed put down. Conversion was successful and unsuccessful, but Blues were up 4-0 early on. And they had the running of the game, and Queensland really had to work their way back in. But I tell you what, the New South Wales dummy half, Keely Davis, man, she was giving service out of dummy half that Andrew McCulloch couldn't even do on the Sunday night game. And literally one of Maddie Studden's mistakes was one of Keely Davis's only poor balls of the first half. Because it was wet, because it was raining, balls really needed to be up on the chest, and that was one that wasn't. But her pass from dummy half out to the left was perfect, and it got Queensland on the back foot. And New South Wales went through and scored then. That was their only try of the game. They got a penalty goal in the second half, I believe. And I'm just double checking that it was the second half when they got their penalty, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, the 2 games are starting to blend together in my head. Because Cleary kicked the penalty goal, at the start of the second half, eh? Yeah, with the Cherry Evans. Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to get that straight. Second half, and New South Wales were up 6-0. No, so see, look, here I am. I'm getting the 2 games bloody confused again. New South Wales are up 4-0, misconversion, and then it was an arm wrestle pretty much from then on. And in these conditions, points were at a premium. What did you make of the first half, Jarrod?
I just think that they played to the conditions where they went through the middle the entire game. There wasn't too much going out wide because it was a wet weather football, which, as you said, mistakes and tries are a premium in those kind of games because you're not going to get too many runaways. And how it looked in the middle with them beating the shit out of each other. Like that hit Kezzy Apps did on the Queensland. I can't remember who it was. How good was that? It was just... Yeah, it was just awesome where it was just an old school slugfest. And they went hard at it, and that was just the first half. The second half, they threw the ball down a bit more. They tried more. They got a bit more desperate. And I just love the idea that how old school it was at the end of the game ended up in a legitimate penalty, but it ended up that's the only thing that can divide these two teams, which is awesome for Queensland because, you know, before last year, I think they lost 10 in a row. And then now they're starting to, was it 10? It was a lot.
No, it wasn't that many. It was because there was a year or so where they missed out on it anyway. But yeah, 2014 was the first time they'd won the Shield before last year. So it's been 5 years, I think, because they'd missed a year.
Yeah, and like Queensland is developing, you know, creating their own reputation of holding out, and then winning the game at the end. It was just fun.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. I did get the penalty goal wrong. Maddie Sutton kicked the penalty goal for New South Wales in the 52nd minute. Queensland scored their try in the 23rd through Disney Brill burrowing over from dummy half. She tried it earlier in the half and they held her up and she went back at it over on the right after a quick play of the ball and got over there. And Lauren Brown did convert that one. So Queensland were up 6-4 at halftime. And Maddie Sutton kicked the penalty at 52nd minute to make it 6-all. And the women's game goes 70 minutes, not 80. And the penalty goal to win the game happened in the 70th minute. So basically it was a play the ball right in front, and I want to get her name right. No, I don't have it right here.
No, I can't.
I'm going to mispronounce it. I don't want to mispronounce it. Led Chelsea Lenarduzzi. Sorry, there you go. Was tackled in front by 3. She was standing up. There was a hand on her ankle. It was pulled up. Did she exaggerate the movement? Maybe, but the illegal, the hand on the ankle. Any other minute in the game, it would have been a penalty. It's just obviously if it's the last minute of the game, it gets magnified. It was a penalty. Yeah. Queensland kicked it. They won 8-6. Probably not the way you want a game like this to end, but it was legit. And Queensland now have won back-to-back Shields. I love the fact you talked about how it was wet weather football. Literally off the kickoff, start of the game, they were talking about the conditions being poor. New South Wales just went boop, 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 4 passes left to right to get all the way out to the opposite second rower to have the first run of the game. And the commentators went, oh, okay, maybe not. Drew Voss was commentating for Fox Sports. Peter Sterling was commentating for Channel 9. So it's not like they're half-arsing this sort of stuff. And when we talk about half-arsing with regards to the women's game, we've talked about Flanders and the expansion teams. We'll get into that later in the week. Players who stood out. Anyone outside of the big names stood out for you, Jarrod?
Not really. I just think they all, as you said, the hooker played well, but the halfback for Queensland, her kicking game was really good as well.
Yeah, it was. Mara.
Yeah, and she kicked in conditions. So I wasn't overly looking at individual performances, but I did notice that. I was more looking at how they adapted to the conditions, and I thought they did, and that does come down to the halves of both teams, which was, pretty impressive. Just the tactics involved and stuff like that. So,
I think the Queensland team showed the men's team how to play as a team. and something that the Queensland men's team did last year, but seemed to have forgotten this year. Like, I think both Queensland centres had really good games, considering they were up against probably the two highest profile opposition in Isabel Kelly and also Jessica Sturgis. Sturgis has been clocked at over 30 kilometres an hour, and she's a damn quick runner. If you give her any space, she's through it. Julia Robinson was marking her, missing only one tackle for the whole game, and cracked at 100 metres running as well. And then you had Lauren Brown, who was a conversion kicker for Queensland, up against Isabel Kelly. And even though Isabel Kelly scored the try, the contact from Lauren Brown on her was legit. And it just shows the class of Isabel Kelly. It's kind of like when somebody hits Trebojevic or Inglis, you can get a really good shot on them, but the talent that they have, they'll still be able to get past you, run over you, just due to their strength. And that's what happened there with that try. But I also want to give a shout out to the Queensland prop, Shannon Marta. I thought she had a really solid game the whole way through. And then obviously Destiny Brill, who scored the try for Queensland. She was on debut, 18-year-old, had a cracker of a game as well. And then obviously Tasman Gray, who got the Neil Doherty medal for Woman of the Match. 125 metres running, huge defence throughout the whole game. When it comes to New South Wales, I thought Isabel Kelly had a good game, not just with her try. She went into the middle of the field looking for the ball, taking pressure off, doing those runs, the Trebojevic-like runs, taking...
I was going to say, doing what the other blonde centre does for this Australian.
Yeah, exactly. She's just an absolute beast. I love watching her play. And the other New South Wales... Oh, not the other New South Wales, right? New South Wales prop. I want to get her name right. Millie Boyle. So 143 metres off 16 carries, pretty much doubled the run metres of Felice Kafusi, just to put it mildly. She was great. She's a strong runner, a powerful runner, brutal to watch. And I'm just watching that highlight again of the Kezi Apps tackle. Doesn't she epitomise a captain? Well, actually, they both do, Ali Brigginshaw and Kezi Apps. It was just a good game.
Ali Brigginshaw moving into the lock position because that young halfback was playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
And, when was the last time you saw a halfback move into bloody lock as the captain? And when was the last time you saw her putting on the tackle she was doing? A halfback doing that. It was epic. It was so cool. This game, it showed the Queensland reputation that everyone was hoping was going to happen on Sunday night.
Yeah.
The backs to the wall, New South Wales got the most talent in their squad, but Queensland just hit hard and stayed in there till the end and took their opportunities when they came. It was just awesome.
The women's game's in such a good spot right now because the two teams are so well balanced, because New South Wales did have the dominant talent the last few years and Queensland with the underdogs, and they've been building. But it's really finally poised right now because New South Wales are starting to have a couple retire. Queensland have got a couple of youngsters coming through, but the core of the two squads are very even. And a very, very entertaining game of footy. Queensland got the win, but it literally came down to 40 seconds to go on a penalty to split the two squads.
You wouldn't be mad if New South Wales pulled that out.
No,
that's how
I said it was such an even game. Just regards to judiciary, Ali Brigginshaw is missing round one of the NRLW season after being charged with a hair pulling offence in Friday night's State of Origin match. Think back to Jamal Idris.
How does this shit?
Weeks.
I don't agree with this at all. She's facing 1 week off for hair pulling because a chick headbutted her.
Yeah.
Cameron Munster kicks a guy prone and he gets off.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, but she also has a 20% loading due to a prior non-similar offence.
He kicked two people in 3 days.
Yeah, right. EHP Premiership, which is the premiership that the girls are playing through the year. has already wrapped up, meaning her one-match ban will be served in the NRLW season. Brigginshaw conceded to ABC Sport Radio that she pulled Sherrington's hair as a retaliation. Yeah, I did it, Brigginshaw said. Me and Ken
good
for rivalry, so she drove the shoulder up through my jaw and I retaliated by giving her a face rub. It might have looked worse like a hair pull. Hey, that's Origin footy.
Good on her.
So good.
Good on her.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it and you have access to KO or the full replay, maybe up on NRL.com, I haven't checked, but go back and watch it. It needs to be a series. It's the talent's there. It's too good not to be a series at this stage, and I loved it. And
Adam right now has got good.
I've got the picture of him as my background.
Yeah, and the absolute emotion in the girls versus holding up that shield.
That's the coach just there.
Yeah, you just want that. So good on.
Did you see the New South Wales coaching booth? It was Gavin Badger, who we've had on the show before. So I reckon we should get him back. And I blew an opportunity. We should have just gone down there and gone like, "Oi, Badge, fancy having a chat before the game," and then meet Tuvi and. It's pretty rare when Tuvi and Badger are the two quietest in a coaching booth because
Hilda went nuts, did she?
She was going nuts. Like when they scored, she was jumping up and down, smiling, and not used to coaching yet. Sorry. Okay. So Queensland retained the shield in the women's, and New South Wales regained the shield in the men's with a 26-0 win at Suncorp. The first time the Maroons have ever been held to 0 at Suncorp Stadium, Lang Park. A convincing win to the Blues. Positives for Queensland. Let's get it over and done with. It was a 50% improvement in points. So after getting 50 points in the first game, 56-6, they only went down 26-0. So they basically halved the score line that New South Wales put on them. So well done, boys. If my maths is correct, game 3 is going to be either 0 or I guess if we go 50% again, it'll be 13-0. But if we just say take another 26 points off, like we kind of took 26 points off this time ish,
0 all.
It'll be something like 6-3 to New South Wales.
You know what?
Get the law of averages.
I'm gonna get this over and done with straight away.
Don't go pop in my positivity bubble.
No. This is that you're actually gonna be surprised by this. I was laying in bed Sunday morning. And I called Adam when the news broke about Mulatalo. And Adam was spending time with the kids, or I can hear the kids in the background at least.
We were driving on the highway. Hands-free.
Yeah, okay.
Bluetooth.
Yeah. And I told him, he's like, what? I can't believe what's going on here.
So I was sitting there. He was going to tell me about Reece Walsh and his hamstring. That's what I thought he was calling about.
No. So what I was sitting there thinking about an hour later, and I messaged the group chat. No one actually replied, but I said this has been the funnest build-up to an Origin game I've ever seen, and that's not because I'm a New South Wales supporter. That's for this reason. No, it's not. I mean, it was funny, but not the funnest. So Queensland, I respect their attitude in the fact that when their back's against the wall, they play better. They come out fighting, use anything they can to win the fight. And they come out and, look at examples 95 when they won 3-0. 2006 when Darren Lockyer was nearly on his deathbed as far as Origin goes, and he came up with that try, won 16-14. Last year when they pulled it out when, Wayne Bennett's sitting in the thing after they got beaten 30-4, and he's sitting there in the dressing room laughing about it. And you're like, this is just typical Queensland, and that just put the fear into everyone straight away. Queensland are so good when their back's against the wall. And I was just sitting there thinking about it, going, look, first game they went to Townsville, but absolutely fucking humiliated. Next game, they had no one to pick. They put an 18-year-old. No one knew how he's going to handle the pressure. He succumbs to a hamstring here about, 36 hours before the game started.
Mm-hmm.
And then 24 hours the game started, Dave Trodden from New South Wales, head of New South Wales Rugby League, called up the NRL CEO. He goes, "Can you have a look at Renato Molitalo's selection, because I don't think he's actually eligible, because it goes on what a Queensland article wrote up about him, that he moved to Queensland when he was 14, which makes him ineligible." We're going to talk about that later. So he got ruled out. They had to bring Xavier Coates in. Was that not the most typical build-up for a Queensland ambush you've ever seen? Like, everything was going against it. And I was sitting there, I'm like, if Queensland win this, it would have been the greatest win. And I would not have been mad, because I would have been so disappointed in New South Wales for letting that happen. It was just so much shit went wrong for him in the week before. And there was, Jonathan Thurston came out with a video Sunday morning explaining what was going on with Mulitalo, and then he ends it with typical New South Wales players and shit like this, typical New South Wales tactic and stuff. And there was barbs thrown all over the place. I got in arguments on Facebook. It was just something we haven't seen in a long time in the Origin arena, as far as a controversy that massive. That, like, the last I remember would have been 2000, when Alan Langer came over from England and then won the game. So it was so typical for a Queensland ambush that I was kind of expecting it, but it didn't work out.
See, I'm disappointed in myself after everything you've just said there, because it just shows how much I watch sport differently now. Because everything you said there, if it was 5 years ago, I would have been so on board with you.
Oh man, I was loving it. I was pumped.
I was like, all this sort of stuff happened. I was like, so we're going to lose by 50 instead of 30. That's my first thought going. Like 5 years ago, it would have been, oh yeah, man, backs against the wall, we got this, rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh yeah, game one happened. Yeah, none of this is going to mean shit. Just think about
I'm
just too analytical now, I think, where I just look at two teams and going, there has to be something so drastically different.
I know. And look, I was still pretty confident for New South Wales to win, like 95% sure. But that little extra 5%, it's just the poetry involved in Queensland coming up as like the lowest of underdogs, to pull that out of their ass and have a win. Like, I was like, oh, that would have just been one of the greatest wins in Origin history, considering what happened to him.
To me, it turned me, like, I get excited for every Origin game regardless, but it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth before the game started. The fact that someone would go to this extent to pull this stuff out the day of a game or the day before a game, when I'm sure anyone on either camp could find something about another player on the other team and be able to do something like this. And you know what? This just shows another step of how amateur this sport can be, when this is meant to be.
No, it's not.
You can't awe it. Like, this has been the worst.
You're talking about Mulitalo. We're going to get into that now, are we?
Yeah, we may as well do that. It was one of the most embarrassing things. Like, it was a big look at me moment. Look what I found. And I'm just going, man, this guy's played for under 16s, under 18s. The NRL signed off on 2 contracts where he put down Queensland eligibility. So I'm going to throw this out there. All you people on social media and Twitter saying, oh, Queensland should have seen this, acting like you knew. Shut up. Paul Green said in his press conference, they don't magnify or go through everyone's players' history. They get sent a list of players from the NRL database showing who's Queensland eligible. You can find it on the NRL.com website. as of the morning of the game, Ronaldo Mulitalo was up there as Queensland eligible. He's up there on zerotackle.com as Queensland eligible.
Okay, hold up.
No one knew about this. It's got nothing on Queensland. It's not. Brad Fittler would have had no idea this was even coming either.
He didn't even know Xavier Coates was playing till like 1:30.
Exactly. This was literally just, oh, look what I found on my little computer and work.
Oh, okay. Hold up.
It was just.
So
what did this dude have? And I'm just going to put this: Ronaldo Mulitalo would not have been the difference in this game, regardless. But to take that experience away from him because of this, and the fact that it'll probably be fixed up so he can now make his debut in New South Wales, that's a huge difference to someone making their debut.
So a few points on that. Dave Trotton, he asked a question about it.
Yeah.
Ronaldo Mulitalo pulled himself out.
Yeah, I know he pulled himself out because he didn't.
NRL did not pull him out, and there's still a chance he could play Origin free. The fact is, as you said, the contracts by Queensland when he put that through, should not have been verified by Queensland, by Cronulla, and by NRL.
Of course, they shouldn't.
If
it's
Queensland the CEO of Queensland would have done the exact same thing if he found someone else debuting for New South Wales in the same situation. 100% would have done the exact same thing. And I guarantee you, every Queensland, New South Wales, Samoan, Tongan, New Zealand eligible player as of right now is getting their history 100% reviewed because Queensland made this error. This is 100% on Queensland.
No, it's not.
It's 100% is they have made the mistake. He should not have played 16s, 18s, 19s, 20s.
That's on the NRL. That's not on the Queensland. Because NRL's the overall governing body.
They are, but Queensland have written up in the rules that they have agreed to let him in.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter because NRL
following the criteria that NRL put down. Yes, it's on NRL as well.
It's
Queensland.
It's on everyone below them, but NRL's the top level.
Yes, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying Queensland should have done their research before they let him play their 16, 18s games.
Mm.
The NRL should have as well.
I don't even think there's criteria for 16, 18s games.
There is. It's the same criteria as State of Origin.
Okay. NRL still shouldn't. If you make a mistake as an employee and your manager doesn't check it all off and just signs it off, it's more than on the manager now for not doing that. They're 100%. In the position. Everyone's made the mistake here, but the fact that it was brought out in this way.
No, I'm not happy about Dave Trotton that's asked the question, which he's probably done before. It just blew up from there. It caught fire.
And what shocks me is the NRL, I'm not going to say bent that. They did actually. They bent the rules to allow Suwali to play this year.
Oh, no. Don't even bring that up. Do you know what they did for that is?
This is an age comparison.
No. Do you know what they did for that is? They had doctors, they had psychologists, they had...
Yeah, I know.
All these experts over a 6-month period.
Yeah, I know all that.
Go through all that. So
but they still bent an age criteria barrier.
See, the thing about it is they could have bent the rules if Queensland asked. Mulitalo pulled out. So I don't even know why Suwali's even a... they still might bend the rules for it. He could never be... I can't believe he's even brought in as a comparison.
It's just the only
NRL, that was a 6-month decision over a 12-hour question mark. And it's what's happened.
The only reason that's been brought up is because it's the only other age comparison. This has nothing to do with heritage.
It's nothing to do with Mulitalo's age.
Yes, it is. It's an 11-month difference.
10, and that was back when he was 14, not
14
18
when he was 13.
NRL.
I know, but it's ridiculous. It makes it less.
It's not ridiculous. It's not. See, this is.
To me, what's more ridiculous from my point of view is that you've got Jerome Luai on New South Wales saying, I'm never going to represent Australia, but I'll play Origin as long as I can until I get selected for... Who's he want to be selected for? Tonga or Samoa?
Samoa. Same with Papali.
Yeah, but Papali's already been selected for Australia, and this was way back before these ones were even going to be tier ones.
I agree, and I said at the start when that happened with Luai that I wasn't happy with that.
Yeah, to me that's a bigger issue than
with this,
like this.
With this, you know, everyone's blowing up about it. It was the NRL and Queensland Rugby League's fault. This happened.
Yeah.
They allowed him in that situation. And do you know what's also not thought of in this period? That who'd Mulatalo get over for that spot for the 16s, 18s, 19s?
Someone who was born in PNG.
No, he replaced him. No, who lost potentially an NRL contract because he couldn't play for Queensland in that game? That Mulatalo got his spot when he wasn't eligible for it back in 16s, 18s, 19s, 20s.
I have no idea.
That's the no one will. That's the point.
Like, I think you're asking as a question.
No. So when he was I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's 10 months off. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Like I don't
makes no difference.
See, yeah, that's my point. But on the other side, there has to be a line drawn somewhere as the cutoff to make this eligibility criteria work. And that was the cutoff, and he didn't make it. So if we're going to bend the rules for stuff like that, we're better off just making it 14 now. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be a cutoff somewhere. And then in 2 years' time, someone who's going to move over from New Zealand, be 14 and, 6 months old, 6 months is not a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? It's just going to
I've got no issue with the age cutoff. I've got no issue that he was the wrong age. I've got no issue with any of that. My issue is when this is meant to be a professional sporting association or organization, they continually make fuck-ups that get put out in the media negatively, that Dave Trodden, whoever the fuck, whatever he does, head of New South Wales football, looks something up by himself and he works out something that
on the QRL website
that an entire organization has missed. That's what pisses me off. It's just an amateur.
Two organizations have missed it.
And then this is the same organization that says, let's have women's expansion. But by the way, we need to break up this successful team.
Yeah, I don't like how it's handled. I don't like what the NRL or QRL have done. I feel like QRL, in the media at least, haven't copped the amount of abuse that the NRL has, because they're just as fault. They're just as fault as the NRL right now.
They are, but that
you used the work example earlier.
If the employee fucks up, they'll get in trouble, but the manager should get in more trouble, and their head should get even in more trouble because they're
but the manager who actually manages the person who signs off on the contracts before they pass it to the NRL is the equivalent of the CEO right now.
Yeah.
So and I guarantee you, working in that kind of environment for a long time, the manager's just as much trouble as the CEO in that situation, because everything else the manager takes credit for, now he's got to cop the blame for this, and that's QRL in this situation.
I'm sure the NRL will do that behind closed doors because they won't want any more negativity on this.
Oh, probably, but the QRL's got to take 50-50 blame on what's happening here, because they put him in this situation where he got humiliated.
We'll say probably behind closed doors, they'll take 50-50 blame. In front doors or whatever, where we all see it, the NRL is going to take the bulk because no one gives a shit about the QRL, the New South Wales Rugby League, in the public domain.
Yeah, which is disappointing.
Yeah, I know. It's better league to watch, but that's not
and I don't like how Paul Green fobbed it all off too in the press conference when he said, I get a list of data from the database and I pick from that. This guy's a spokesperson of the QRL. He's the front and center of the QRL. He can't, I know he's not going to run through their contracts, but he can't say that. That's wrong. No. He's got to go.
Fittler would be getting the same thing.
Fittler would be more upfront. We go, we fucked up. Fittler's known for admitting his mistakes. He admitted it for the last 6 months. Yeah, but it
wasn't Green's mistake, and it wouldn't have been Fittler's mistake.
But like I said, when something does go wrong in an organisation, everyone's got to come together and either say we fucked up or defend. He essentially went, you know what? They sent me a message. I just went off that. So he threw someone else under the bus in his selection. That's what happened. He threw someone else under the bus. He didn't cop any blame to it. He didn't unify under the Queensland banner and go, yeah, as a organisation, we fucked up.
I think you're starting to get...
No.
I think you're going too broad. It's...
I just think that the whole situation is
embarrassing for rugby league, again.
It is. And I don't like the people blaming New South Wales for it either, because the New South Wales did all the right thing for it. They didn't even give a shit, to be honest.
It was petty they did, but you'd expect it.
No, it wasn't. They asked a question.
I know, you didn't have to ask it. Keep your mouth shut and just do it after. Because you just wrecked a kid's dream. Then you knew you wouldn't have made it. Any couch potato, probably not people in the top because they get paid to say what they say, but you could tell everyone knew Mulatalo wouldn't have made a difference. But
let's put it this way: he would have scored
him
that
a chance of making his. Yeah, but it would have denied him a chance of making his home debut, apart from instead of doing it in New South Wales in 2 weeks,
if he's allowed.
Well, let's put it this way: the person who will end up making the decision also came out this week and said, "I want Queensland to win tonight for the sake of attendances for Game 3, TV ratings, and interest of the series."
Who the hell said that?
Blandies. Because he's a tard. Sorry, man. You've had your little spell in the sun, but you need to move on. Let's go to the actual game, eh? So what we want to do is, look at everything that New South Wales did well, as opposed to looking at what Queensland didn't do well. Now, it's easier said than done, because the first 2 tries New South Wales scored literally came from Queensland mistakes. But where I want to go to, and where New South Wales, I believe, won the series, is Brad Fittler learning from his mistakes from last year, and Queensland riding on the coattails of last year. I think, looking back, last year when New South Wales were overwhelmingly favourites to win, I think Fittler outcoached himself, trying to come up with game plans to ensure, or trying to shut down anything that Queensland could try to do, and maybe didn't focus on putting his best players in the best position to win games. This year, he's like, you know what? My players are better than Queensland's players. I'm going to play to their strengths this year. Trbojevic, Rome, do whatever the hell you want. Mitchell, do the same thing. I think he simplified everything this year for New South Wales. He picked the best players that he could, found a spot for them, and just let them play. I think
you say that
Green's selections, personnel-wise, he was limited by injury, but where he played them, the time that he had them on the field, put the players in a much harder position than they needed to be in order to even compete, let alone win the game. So I think that was the biggest thing that New South Wales did right this year.
See, you do say that, but remember last year, Trbojevic was out the entire series.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, and so was Mitchell.
And it wasn't... See, that's what is funny about the first game this year. So Trbojevic ripped him apart by Romy. He did that in 2019. That's how he scored 3 tries back then. And Queensland were not prepared for it for some stupid ass reason, because
it hadn't been really done before, but anyway.
But he did it in the 2019 series where they won.
Oh, were you talking about they weren't expecting it then, or they weren't expecting it this time?
Well, no, weren't expecting it this year's series.
Yeah,
they got ripped apart this year's series when he did it. So last year, obviously having Gutherson and White in the centres doesn't create that punch
No.
That and also it made Capewell look like an absolute superstar.
Did you know White was in this series?
Yeah, he played 10 minutes last night at hooker.
Yeah.
So
you to say no, because that's what interchange players should be like there.
Yeah, but yeah, so that part was different. But you're right. Fittler didn't play to the strengths last year of the players he had. And which was very disappointing because the players we had, like he had a Dally M winner for that year playing the centres that last year. And which like I said, it's disappointing because they did have potential, but they didn't play as together last year as well. And Fittler was probably throwing too much at them. And it's definitely learnt this year because one of the things he said last night was like, look, you look at these guys, you let them run it. I just point them in the right direction.
Yeah, that's what a state of origin coach does.
Yeah.
They're a man manager. And they come up with a couple of specific tactics to beat the elite of the opposition. And literally, New South Wales had a plan A and they never had to shift to plan B.
He probably had a whole workboard playing, A to Z. And he's like,
yeah, he'll probably just keep them for the next 5 or 6 series.
Out the window.
So I think that was the first thing New South Wales did well. Fittler selected. Well, I think the only issues I had with this selections was Trbojevic for game 1, and he played 26 minutes or something in game 1, and
Jake, by the way, everyone.
Sorry, and who was the other one?
Sims,
Junior Paulo, because I think I should have started, and I still think that after the second game because Paulo was somewhere on the field, but no one saw him.
See that he did. Like the biggest moment I got from him was in that first set, Safidi got dominated, Trbojevic got dominated, and I think someone else. Paulo took the 4th run, and he made about 15 meters, and about 10 of those were post contact.
Oh, and prop taking the 4th run of the set.
No. So that's the beauty of what it was, that when he got the ball, he was on the 10-meter line. He contacted him on the 12 meters out and made it to the 20.
Oh, yeah.
In that first set. Because what you guys were doing was like, I'm going to go out and bash him and beat the shit out of him. In the first 5 minutes, Christian Welch was cooked because he was trying to tackle everything. And then there was no defensive line. And he made that run and just put Queensland on the back foot after 4 tackles when they were so dominant in the first 3. That was the difference.
True.
Another really cool thing New South Wales did actually was for the first couple of kickoffs, they were kicking at Safidi on New South Wales' right-hand side, and he was getting beaten. Like, he was making it 10 meters, but he was getting put on his back. When they got their first forced dropout, the front rowers actually switched sides. And Queensland didn't adapt well enough because they obviously had a tactic to kick to Safidi. They didn't adapt well enough. He actually ended up in Paulo's hand, which made Safidi stronger for the next tackle. And that was just like one of those little things that New South Wales were doing better. They identified what Queensland were doing. They adapted to it. And Queensland weren't ready for that adaptation. And that's one of the millions of examples what New South Wales did to Queensland last night.
Oh, yeah. And I wanted to throw Paulo in there because Jarrod's brother, Billy, may have messages from America saying,
Billy.
Players with this and this, but geez, man. Whew. I'd say it's easy to pick on players from other teams when no one gets selected from your team. It makes it hard to point blame. So I only had Paulo.
It's funny because Billy had to go at Cherry Evans to Adam and Safidi to Adam. But if Billy listens to this, mate, Safidi made the most runs out of most dominant forward pack on the game. Most meters. And Cherry Evans topped the fantasy points for Queensland had to make 30 tackles, which was an obvious tactic, which that means no one's protecting him, but he was able to make those 32 tackles. Or
tackles, kick meters should have been a try assist if Felt could hold up freaking football.
It's just quite funny that Billy had to go at one Manly player and one Newcastle player.
Like if he'd picked out Paulo and McCulloch, would have been 100% happy. So let's have a look. Now, it comes down to selections as well. So I'm looking at the first New South Wales try. It stems off Latrell Mitchell one-on-one rake on Kurt Capewell. Now, when I said the Queensland selections, Queensland run on the coattails of last year, Capewell had one good game last year, and people are remembering it like he's the second coming of Jesus or something. I've made my opinions pretty clear on him in the past, and since doing this, I try to take feeling out of it as much as possible and just look at who I think is a good football player. Kurt Capewell,
I do not.
A good football player. He is not an elite football player. State of origin is where the elite shine. He had one good game, and he's now versus an elite player for 2 games in a row who's made him look stupid. And yes, he got a try in the first game. I'll admit, and we talked about that one, Travoy, which was making a tackle on the other side of the field, got across, Jarrod. Anyway, all that. His best position, in my opinion, is a bench forward. He's not good enough to be a second row forward in Origin. He's definitely not good enough to be a centre in Origin.
Against Gufferson, he's fine. Hey, Billy.
And yeah, he got raked one-on-one by a centre. Well, fullback playing centre now, supposedly. Now, the next tackle from there, this leads to the New South Wales try. Daly Cherry Evans and Cam Munster made the tackle. And you'd expect that because it had come off a New South Wales kick. The backs generally get back first because the forwards take longer to get back. So your 2 halves are in there making the tackle. Cam Munster is the last one on. Cherry Evans runs back to the right side of the Queensland defence, left side of New South Wales attack. Cam Munster stops, looks behind, looks either at the ref and at his teammates saying, look, I'm in here. We're going to be one short on the left. This then comes down to selection. So out on the left, you've got Xavier Coates on the wing. You've got Kurt Capewell in the centres and Jai Arrow being selected in the second row, where he's played, 3 games, maybe, in the last 3 or 4 years because he's a lock or a prop. Jarrod's just disappeared from my screen for some reason. Anyway, I'll keep talking. Oh, there he is. And then McCulloch. So because Munster wasn't there, there's no one in between Arrow and Capewell. But if you had a second rower there, like a Kafus if it was on the other side, or a Crichton for New South Wales, someone who plays the position regularly, and Cam Murray's been found out a couple of times as well, they would realise their positioning and be like, you know what, Munster's not here. I need to move out because we're going to have an overlap. He's 1.5 meters away from McCulloch in the middle of the field. And that comes down to selection, picking Arrow in the second row to start with, because you're now putting a player in a position where he's not comfortable, hasn't played, and has no or limited experience, especially at this level. New South Wales go, holy shit. Let's throw Tedesco out there, do a wraparound. Arrow comes in, overreads the run, and then you've got Trebojevic against Capewell one-on-one. We know what's going to happen there. And the ball goes out and Adokar scores. This was... New South Wales just made Queensland pay for a mistake. And that's what the good teams should do. And that's what Queensland have done for the previous however many times when they had their big run of dominance. We're going to get back and talk to that towards the end. This try literally came down from a one-on-one rake and Queensland not being able to respond to it and a player being picked out of position. New South Wales looked up, Cleary got the ball, sized it up, 4-on-2 it ended up being, and New South Wales scored. It was, you watch and went, shit, that was easy. And it was, because it was. Jesus Christ.
I said before the game that
To me, that's on Paul Green and selecting at second row, because if you had someone there who could analyse the situation, would they have scored? Still, most likely, yes. But you would have forced them to do something a hell of a lot more difficult. Pass.
Well, see, the thing about it is that you actually had Coates on the outside, and they had enough people. They had 3-on-2 by the end of it. And they had someone come from the inside, which forced Tedesco to pass because he was a block runner sweeping around from the other side.
Yeah, that was Arrow coming in on him instead of staying out on him.
So what it is a severe lack of trust by the Queensland back outside, because if Xavier Coates wasn't coming in and had his shoulder angled in, as in trying to tackle Trbojevic, Tedesco wouldn't have seen that. If he was lining up facing Addo-Carr, Tedesco would have had to pass to Trbojevic, would have been an extra pass to get it to Addo-Carr. So what Tedesco saw was that Coates was not trusting Capewell. Capewell was not trusting Arrow. So all it was is just a quick cutout ball to Addo-Carr. He had about, 8-9 meters of space to run through.
Yeah.
So it just showed that these guys were not trusting each other.
I'm watching it again now. The only person who did their job was Christian Welch.
Yeah.
He was the one inside McCulloch. He was pushing out. So he was going to hit Cleary. McCulloch's come in to hit Cleary. Arrow's come in to hit the lead runner, which has created, 3-on-2.
So... And that's all it was. And they could have defended it. They could have defended it better if Xavier Coates did not run in on Tom Trbojevic.
But he has to come in because everyone else has shifted in. Everyone. The only person that was out towards the sideline was Welch. And hold up.
What's a better chance of stopping New South Wales from getting it? If he held his line, Tedesco would have had the pass. And then Trbojevic would have had to pass to Addo-Carr to get it around. So there's more of a chance of stopping. If you can make your defending team pass more, that's a better chance of stopping them.
Are you saying he shouldn't have gone straight at Trbojevic?
Yes, he should have held his line. So Tedesco passed it to Trbojevic.
Yeah, true.
Which would have meant he would have had to step on side to try something. This one, he just cut out 15-meter cutout ball, something Tedesco could do in his sleep, and Addo-Carr was not touched. If Xavier Coates trusted his inside man, it would have been a lot different.
I'm not going to put this on Coates because there was 4 people at
but that's my point.
He could have, if he'd held his line, there would have been close to a 6-meter gap between him and the center.
See, but that's the thing. It's not on Coates in the reason that no one was talking. So everyone was going, oh, crap, what do I do? Let's go for that dude. And now so far out of this, as you said, a 6-meter gap is massive, especially with Tommy Turbo there. If someone was actually talking out there and organising their defensive line and they trusted to listen to that person, it would have been a lot different story.
You know what that comes down to? Selecting a centre and a second row.
Well... Yes, but...
That's the end of discussion. That is the end of the discussion.
100%.
Selected 2 people in those positions that know those positions. They need to talk. Arrow has no fucking idea what he's doing out there because he plays in the middle of the field. Kurt Capewell has no idea what he's doing out there because he's literally physically...
He's a Band-Aid.
He's physically mismatched. It's not on him as a person. It's like putting Damien Cook against... fucking Papali and telling Papali to try and stop him running around him.
Yeah.
The only chance he has is if Cook runs straight at him. It's just poor coach.
I'm just
disappointed.
Okay,
the second try isn't so much on, it's not on coaching. It's just literally this is your 4th option dummy half. And there he showed you why he's the 4th option dummy half. This is the Latrell Mitchell intercept. Now, oh boy. Queensland do well to get in a position to score a try. They've got 2 block runners or bum ball runners in Fodawaker and Papali who go through. Now, you've got Cherry Evans, Holmes, Kafusi, Gagai, and then who's on the win there? Felt. The back line looks really good. It's set up really well. They've actually got New South Wales stripped for numbers because Holmes already outside Luai, and he's got him for speed and for space. Where this fucks up is the dummy half throws what's called a floater to the halfback. So McCulloch, instead of ripping it as a spiral from the base of the ruck, picks it up, floats the ball end over end to Cherry Evans. As soon as Cherry Evans gets the ball, instead of moving forward with it, his next option is to stutter step sideways because the ball was thrown so slowly and to him instead of in front of him. Now, as a Manly fan, I've watched Cherry Evans enough to know that his left to right flat ball is gun. Like, it's a cannon. When he threw this ball...
Not as good as Pierce, but keep going.
Well, no, Pierce has also done it for a bit. Oh, a little bit longer. But when he throws this ball, he's doing something he doesn't usually do. He's flat-footed and having to hoik it as hard as he can because instead of running with it with momentum, he's had to stop because the ball from dummy half was as bad. Because he's had to rake it as hard as he could, he's thrown the ball behind Holmes, which means Holmes now has to stop. What this allows is Luai to stop in defense and allows Mitchell outside him to stop in defense. So by the time Holmes now gets the ball, he's flat-footed as well, trying to do a cutout ball in front of Kafusi to Gagai. But at this point, Mitchell's already standing still watching instead of having to make a decision of who to tackle. He's got time to watch the ball. He runs through and picks out the easiest intercept he's ever done. Now, that wasn't coach or anything. That just comes down to the difference in talent between your Harry Grant to your Reid Marnie to your Ben Hunt and then to your fourth choice in McCulloch. And the rest of the match goes from there. And it's one thing I don't think is being talked about enough. I've talked about coaching a lot. I've talked about tactics a lot. I've talked about strategy a lot. One thing that none of that takes into consideration is talent. You can have the best coach in the world with the best strategy in the world, with the best everything in the world. If the other team has more talent than you, 9 times out of 10, they will win based on the fact that they have better players. Like, you can train... Asafa Powell can train for his entire life in sprinting to get faster. He'll never beat Usain Bolt because Usain Bolt is a faster person than him. You can train as much as you want to put whatever centers against Greg Inglis. 9 times out of 10, he's going to score. That 1 time out of 10 is Josh Morris. Not saying he only put 1 out of 10. I'm saying he's the one defender in 10 that will be able to stay with him.
Limit him, anyway.
Limit him. Not that he'll limit him 1 in 10, more often than that. But Gagai against Mitchell this series, Capewell against Trebojevic, Felt and Coates against Tuo and Addo-Carr, Holmes against Tedesco. They're all the 9 out of 10 that aren't going to stop those players. I don't care if Craig Bellamy, Wayne Bennett. I even said last night, if Thurston and Cronk were in this Queensland team, they wouldn't have won.
Oof. I don't know about that.
They wouldn't have won. Because who are they going to give the ball to?
Oh, they would have created space.
They would have they definitely would have created space. But is going to take...
we beat him in Origin 1.
Like Inglis and Folau and Hodges used to?
Oh, I honestly would have loved to see Inglis try to defend Trebojevic.
That would have been a match.
I think they'd beat each other depending on who had the ball.
I think Inglis would win just based on his knowledge of the position, because we saw Capewell did actually stand up Trebojevic in game 1 because Trebojevic defending in the centres is different.
Yeah, but I just think that Inglis. I don't overly rate Inglis as a strong defender. So. No. So whoever
he was a good
defender,
but he wasn't he wasn't an elite defender. He wasn't like a Morris or a.
Whoever has the ball in their hands is going to win.
Chambers at his prime.
So, yeah, see the thing about it is that you mentioned talent, which you are right, but when you think about it, Queensland probably have a more talented forward pack. So I would rate their front row minus.
I said no one ever.
Well, Welch and Papali over Safidi and Paulo. I would pick Welch and Papali over those two.
No, I'll put that as one poor decision by Fittler. Put Haas in there instead of Paulo.
And then Cook over McCulloch, but Cook over Grant.
No, Grant. Yeah, that's one.
I would put, if you got their proper second rowers in there, like if you had Farmasuli on the edge, they would beat Murray.
He doesn't even play on the edge at club anymore. I'd prefer on the edge, but or the bench.
If you have Farmasuli and Kafusi on the edges versus Murray and
Crichton.
No, Sims.
I would put their starting second row. I would assume going forward.
Well, the thing about it is that Queensland do have the better players in the forward pack, as you said. They're just kind of out of position. Like I would rate them better. But the only thing is, last night
I said the forward packs are a wash at the start of the season.
Well, see, the difference is that the size in New South Wales backline now coming in and now running over Queensland's forward pack, which was just embarrassing.
We've never seen a backline like this, and it's only been one series.
Yeah, so talent does thing, but I think attitude trumps talent.
No.
I do. I will say that every day of the week.
If attitude trumps talent, Queensland wouldn't have won 8 straight.
I don't agree.
Because you're saying that at origin level, one team wants it more than the other, and that's bullshit. Because at origin level,
no. So
trying as hard as they can for their
just
state.
Doesn't wants it more. Attitude is, you can try to tackle someone with a great attitude, but if you're not, holding back on that tackle or putting your body on the line for that tackle, that's different.
That's attitude.
So, I would say, for example, Greg Bird had a great attitude, but because of that attitude, his defensive. Greg Bird had the same amount of motivation and talent as a lot of the players, but because of his silliness in his attitude, in a lot of these players.
No, I don't see that silliness in attitude. That's just decision. That's rugby league IQ. He just never had that.
No, because rugby league IQ is when you think. When did Greg Bird think?
That's what I mean. He didn't have it. That's
on
his attitude.
Yeah, I just think that. Like, if the Queensland, when they're good, Matt Scott was, as you said, footy IQ, but his attitude was better as far as staying with the team instead of trying to do everything himself.
I can't buy into that because then I'm looking at who was New South Wales then. I'd say every time I saw Clemmer in New South Wales, he was trying as hard as Matt Scott ever was.
Yeah, but I don't think attitude's just trying. I think attitude's thinking as well. Footy IQ goes into attitude.
No.
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah. No.
Footy IQ is something... Footy IQ is decision-making, knowing when to do the right thing at the right time. That's something that separates the elite to the very good.
Yeah, and which I think attitude isn't just emotion for me.
No, it's motivation, it's arousal, it's
emotion,
confidence, it's
emotion.
Yeah, okay, but that's got nothing to do with your IQ.
So attitude is sorry, I said that wrong. Attitude is not just emotion for me. Attitude's thinking of what you're doing to it. Yeah, okay, you know who's going to get the ball up there, and a good attitude will show. To jam up on them and to try and stop the ball from getting out wider. But
that's effort. Yeah.
A great attitude is knowing when to hold back in that situation. So that's what I think.
I think we've got very differing points of view of what attitude is.
Okay.
Because attitude just, I'm going to go out and do the best I can in whatever position I get put in and do my best to help my team. It's got nothing to do with I'm going to step inside this person at this point and do this then. And that's like, the reason why I come down to planning talent and all that sort of stuff is the post-match comments and like we could go through the rest of the game and like even 3 minutes after that, the try, New South Wales' second try, with the Mitchell intercept, New South Wales runs straight back down that right edge, and Arrow makes another poor defensive read, comes in off his man and hits the dummy half and leaves the second row completely open, who ends up knocking on. Luckily for Queensland, again, it was just another really poor read. You could continue to break down the game, but to me, when it comes down to the fact that if you look at the player stats, the most meters run by a forward in that game by the New South Wales was 128 by Saifidi. And if that's your highest running forward, usually you've had a pretty poor game team-wise. What trumps that is the fact that your fullback and one of your wingers ran for over 230 meters each, and each of your other back three ran for a minimum of 100 meters. Like Addo Carr had questionably the worst game out of those back five. It was still a really good game. Trebojevic ran for 180. Mitchell ran for 176. There was only Nathan Cleary ran for 114. There was only 3 forwards that ran for 100. Like Isaiah Yeo, 93. Tariq Sims, 95. Cam Murray, 79. They didn't have to do that much. And a forward pack where you've only got 3 forwards running over 100 meters is usually an issue. It's usually because that's your go forward. But when you've got a back five like this that is so far above the back five of the other team, I'm not going to say it renders your forwards useless, but they take on the role of an extra forward between the 5 of them. Yeah. And that's an incredible weapon to have. You know, we used to play, you remember when we used to play rugby league when it first came out on PlayStation or whatever?
No, I played outside.
Yeah, me too, actually. But the few times I did play, you could put Billy Slater as 13 players, and that was the best team you could select because there's no point in having forwards because he could just run over him because he could break tackles. But when I went back, so one thing to try and put my point down to, I said at the end of the first, I didn't think whatever Queensland did, they weren't going to win. They could have limited it, which they did. They took 26 points off the board. But during Queensland's run of dominance, 8 series in a row, 11 series in 12 years, I firmly believe that entire time that New South Wales had the better overall team. The difference, and Jarrod pointed this out earlier today, in those 11 series, Queensland only won one of them 3-0.
Massive.
That's one. It's only one. New South Wales has had this sort of team together once with everyone there, and looks like they're going to win 3-0. Whether they can continue to do that, obviously we don't know. But the reason why Queensland only won one series 3-0 is because their talent wasn't spread throughout the entire team. It was based on generally 4 players who were elite in their position compared to the opposition. And when I said coaches can plan as much as they want, but you can't plan to beat talent. When Cooper Cronk kicked that 40-meter field goal in the Origin Arena, when Greg Inglis palmed and used Mark Gasnier as a speed bump, when...
that was Anthony Quinn.
Oh, sorry, Anthony Quinn, but he got around Gasnier, sorry. When Folau made his debut and jumped up and one-handed put that ball on the ground and try. That sort of stuff you can't plan for. And your Cam Smith, Cooper Cronk, Thurston and Slater, the main four, and Inglis for his time, they won the series. The rest of the players played a role. But you take any of those guys out, and there's no 8 in a row. There's no 11 and 12. And this series, you take Trebojevic and Mitchell out.
Oh, Gufferson and Whiten last year.
Yeah, and you saw the difference. And that's your elite talent. I reckon...
It's Gufferson because he's an overrated flog. Hey, well.
Oh, anyone, you put any other centre in there from New South Wales, you're taking a step down. And
hey, whoa.
Been centres. I reckon right now, if everyone in both squads were on their best form, I could fit 4 Queenslanders into that New South Wales team.
And that's essentially on the bench, isn't it?
No, I think these 4 would start, but they're the only ones I could fit in.
Let me guess. Munster?
Yeah, he'd go over Luai.
Not the wingers, not the centres.
No, you missed one. Or centre.
Papali?
Yeah. So he could go over either prop except for Haas.
Famusuli?
No.
Sure. No, it can't be anyone in the back line.
Yes. One, if they're on their top form, Origin Arena.
Oh, you're going Gay Guy.
Yeah, Gay Guy has to be in there because he's been the best.
No, he doesn't because Trebojevic has got a better record on him. Addo Carr's going to have a better record than him soon. Toto, by the way,
I'm talking about top form in Origin. He's been the best outside for the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I guarantee you...
he'd go over Addo. I'd put him over 2-0. Easy.
Oof. Okay, so what do you got?
I'd put him over Hodges in Origin ever.
I put him over...
I'd put him over Gazner, I'd put him over Cooper, I'd put him over Gidley, I'd put him over all.
Calm down. Oi, calm down. No.
He's the only outside back to average 200 metres.
Okay, so what do you got? Munster, you got Gay Guy over question mark, you got Papali.
There's no question mark. He's the first outside DAC for Queensland picked.
Question mark. And then you've got...
This guy was injured for the second game.
For the last night's game?
Yeah.
Didn't play. Reece Walsh.
What? No. Harry Grant.
Oh, Harry Grant over Cook. Yeah, okay. Well,
they're the only 4.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, without top form, because 3 of those 4 aren't in there. Well, actually, right now I'd put Harry Grant in. He's the only one who'd get in the New South Wales squad if he wasn't injured. I don't think the other 3 are playing well enough to be able to get into that team. I think Harry Grant would be able to go and over Cook. That's it.
So is that what you're saying? If the Australian team got picked tomorrow, you put Harry Grant at hooker and no one else in?
Well, Luai wouldn't be picked for Australia, so Munster would be in.
That's not the question. Yes,
it is, because he's not
right now, if the Australian team was picked and Luai was playing for Australia, would you only put Grant in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, who else deserves a position? Even at Clubland.
So, see, the thing about it is... Okay, yeah. No, I get it. With those 4... Yeah, okay. I'll go that. I will throw out that Fodawaker and Molo did all right off the bench last night.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they did all right. They don't deserve to be.
I was looking at the starting 13. I didn't really consider the bench, but
yeah, I just not a lot of credits. Like Molo's debut was last night, and I said before the game to Kalisha that Queensland are going to go hard for the first 20 minutes. They'll die in the arse, and New South Wales will run over the top of them. Turns out it only lasted 10 minutes where Queensland died in the arse. I think when Francis Molo and Fodawaker came on, they created a little bit of impact and struggle for the New South Wales team. And it's not talked about well enough because of what had happened around them, but I think they showed up some pretty well-known forwards who were playing with them last night. Looking at you for feeder,
Kaufusi.
Papali only ran for 70 meters or something for the time he was on.
Molo played 26 minutes, and he tied Kaufusi for run meters, who played 80.
Yeah, and I feel like they went under the radar, because if this was 26-24 game or 26-18, because Queensland blew 3 tries, they would have been talked about more. And I still think they should be talked about in the fact that, they played well in a very shit team.
If I'd considered the bench, Fodawaker in clubland as well is probably the most informed Queenslander in this squad. He's been having a really good last month and a half. I'd put him ahead of Paul. I'd probably put him ahead of Saifidi at the stage as well. For a bench spot.
Nah.
For a bench spot, considering if you had Haas as a starter, and obviously Papali's an incumbent, but I don't think he's playing Saifidi or Haas anyway.
I think in this boat, Saifidi, I know this is going to sound super biased, but he kind of has flown under the radar as some of the, like a front rower in the competition, like a dominant front rower. So
he's keeping Clemmer out of the squad, and he's in the same team as him.
Yeah, and Clemmer's been playing well this year. This is his 3rd series in a row. He's now starting, and he's overshadowing, Welch, Papali on the big stage, but he's doing it so quietly. No one's talking about how well Saifidi's been playing. But bring up his stats. What did you say he ran for?
128 meters. That's all he had to do. And that's what I mean. Like, if your forwards can fly under the radar, like, no one's talking about how poor Damien Cook's playing, because all he has to do is get the ball to Cleary, or even Luai didn't have to do much this game. But when he did something, it had an impact. Now,
look, Saifidi's stats: 1 offload, 2 tackle breaks, 95% tackle efficiency with only missing 2 tackles out of 37, 128 meters. That's a good game for a front row, and it as you said, it's not talked about because the outside backs are doing so well. So it's just flying under the radar over the bigger names, and I'm stoked about it.
Now, Jarrod made a slip of his tongue a few episodes or months ago, whatever, said something about me doing research about before we do episodes. So I figured I actually might do some for once.
Do better than me.
To prove this is the last thing I've got on my point with regards to talent. Now, what I did to try and prove my point with regards to, I believe New South Wales have had the best squad for the last 15 years or so, whatever it was. And they should. They've got more players to select from. And the differences being Cronk, Thurston, Smith, Slater, Inglis. So what I did, I went back to 2006, where Queensland started their run, and went all the way through to 2017. So Queensland won every series except for 2014. I found the most selected New South Wales player per position and made a squad of 13. And then for my interchange, I picked the players who showed up the most, but didn't have enough to get a position individually. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the New South Wales most consistently selected squad from 2006 to 2017 through Queensland's.
Am I going to cry?
Series. It's not the most outstanding team, but when I throw in the names of players who were also selected for 1, 6, 7, 9 games in those positions, you'll start to see what I mean. All right. There was a possibility of 36 games to be played if you played every one of the games from 2006 through 17. No one did that, obviously. Like 36 games is ridiculous. There's only a few players that even played over 30. But I'll tell you the player and then the amount of games they got selected for. Fullback, Brett Stewart, 7 games.
Huh.
The next three, Hayne, Gidley, and Dugan, all on 6.
Oof.
Hayne was in the top 3 in 3 different positions, by the way. So for wing, Jarrod Hayne, Brett Morris, 13 games and 15 games. Centers, Michael Jennings and Josh Morris, 17 games and 13. So your back 5 would be Brett Stewart, Jarrod Hayne, Brett Morris, Michael Jennings, Josh Morris.
It's not bad.
That's pretty good. Halves. Now, 5'8" is ridiculous. So out of 36 games, this player played the most with 8. Maloney. Now, from the years 11 through to 15, so 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, New South Wales consecutively picked different 5'8" who played all 3 games. So Soward, Carney, Maloney, Reynolds, Pearce. That's Josh Reynolds. So over 5 years, 5 different 5'8", all of them played all 3 games, and they selected someone new the next year. Random. Mitchell Pearce at halfback, 15 games. 2 front rowers, Aaron Woods and James Tarmo, 14 and 11. Hooker, Robbie Farah with 16. Second rows, Ryan Hoffman with 12. He played a third of the games. Now, this second rower played the third least amount of games after Brett Stewart and Maloney. Bo Scott has played the most games at second row since 2016 to 17 for New South Wales after Ryan Hoffman. And then at lock, Paul Gallen with 13. So that's your team. Brett Stewart, Jarrod Hayne, Michael Jennings, Josh Morris, Brett Morris, James Maloney, Mitchell Pearce, Woods, Farah, Tarmo, Hoffman, Scott, Gallen.
I don't mind it.
It's solid without being.
It's not gonna win anything against the team that Queensland had, but
yeah, that's the most consistently picked. So my bench for your utility, you can either have Greg Bird or Kurt Gidley. Your other forwards for the other 3 spots: Watmo, Lewis, Merrin, or Clemmer. So you can get 3 of those 4.
I'd go Clemmer, Merrin.
Watmo was selected Merrin, and then Watmo was selected the most out of those 4.
I'd go I'd do everyone but Watmo.
Oh wow! So he was actually selected like a hell of a lot, but
yeah,
makes sense. That's a pretty good bench. Now,
yeah, it just doesn't have that
talent.
Yeah, it doesn't have that spark, eh?
So that's a good team. And then, like, you're looking through this list of names that have popped up, like Jamie Lyon isn't in there. Trent Barrett, Josh Dugan, Mark Gasnier, Matt Cooper, Tamana Tahu.
Yeah, but you're naming a lot of players who would have been prime in 2003.
Well, Cooper played 9 games at centre in this period. The only 2 that played more than him from 16 to 17 were Jennings and Morris. He would have been the next one. And then Gasnier.
6 to 17.
2006 to 2017.
Yeah, he said 16.
Oh, sorry. So after Morris and Jennings, your next 2 played centres would have been Cooper and Gasnier.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, after, in 5'8", it would have been Anasta was next after Maloney, and Anasta had 5.
That's horrible, Anasta.
But your second row is like Glenn Stewart, Luke Lewis, Ben Cray.
Where's Hindy?
Nathan Hindmarsh had 7, but Bo Scott had 9.
Yeah, but
Danny
was that just Bo Scott playing his second row? So how many games did Bo Scott play of Origin?
So he had 9 in second row. He had 2 at centre. I didn't count ones on the bench because there wasn't enough.
Okay.
You had Badirius, who played 9 at
Badirius.
hooker. Badirius was 9 at hooker. He was second most after Farah. He'd played more games than Ennis did in that period. Like looking through, if you picked your best squad using those players, Cordner's not even listed. Frizzell's not listed. I couldn't, like, they haven't played enough in that time period.
Yeah.
like just the depth of player, Brent Kite, Brett White, Andrew Fafita, like when he was at his prime, and he was there during his prime, it's ridiculous the depth of talent that they had, like the depth. But the difference is there's no Cam Smith in that list, there's no Cronk, there's no Thurston, there's no Slater. And that was the difference in that time period.
Yeah.
And that's what we saw this year. It's the first time in a long time that New South Wales talent, Tedesco, Trebojevic, Cleary, Mitchell, they're the difference.
Yeah. And what Queensland have got to do, because there's teams, majority of them are below 25.
Mm-hmm.
So if they stay together and keep that, that motivation to keep playing, Queensland have got to somehow dull them and try and put them away. Like,
yeah,
they got to find some kind of hole in the third game. They got to get some kind of momentum in the third game, and it's all going to come off the forward pack they've got. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to have to.
I think Queensland, whoever goes in, has to have a rethink and be like, you know what? We're the underdogs for however many years to come until we start unearthing some new young talent that can rival these guys. Until then, we need to come up. We need a strategist, and we need to come up with the best way to shut down as many of their weapons as possible. And New South Wales damn near did it a fair few times against Queensland until Thurston dummied and made a break, or until Smith coaxed a penalty out of somewhere or something that wasn't planned for. Now, Queensland has to come up with a way to try and get to the 75th minute where it's 18-20 or something like that. And then if frickin' Tedesco twinkle toes his way through like that New South Wales when they got that victory, 2 years ago? Where Tedesco scored in the last minute. If that happens, well then, fuck, you got so close to outlasting them, and then someone like that scored right at the end. That would be acceptable. What's happening now is not.
Yeah.
The only game plan I can think of going into the last game is double team Mitchell and Trebojevic, leave 2-0 and Adokar open and hope the ball doesn't get there.
Like, they'll find a way. Like, New South Wales found a way to blunt them. They couldn't do it 2 games in a row, but they found a way to blunt them.
That's what I mean. But they still didn't win.
It is able to be done. You just got to see the thing about it. Like they got beaten 1-0 in this game. New South Wales, clearly the biggest weakness they have is kicking, because they blew 3 tries of kicking, and then they created that one with Xavier Coates that Trebojevic saved amazingly well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there is a weakness for New South Wales there, and that they've just got to be better at finishing it off, because they did.
Yeah. They were literally in there for finishing. They're not in there for defense.
Yeah, and they couldn't do it, which maybe Mulatalo could have changed that. Maybe bringing in Ponga could create that spark, or I don't know what it is or how they're going to do it, but there is weaknesses in this New South Wales team. They just got to be able to finish it off. They got done 99% of the work on 3 of those tries. This is the 1% that they 1%. Get over the line. Yeah,
and it leads me back to that New South Wales. The fact that Queensland had those 4. The fact that New South Wales stayed with them for the majority of those series. That's what I meant by New South Wales having the stronger team every year. Queensland now need to find a way to have the stronger team. Even if they don't have the talent, the top end talent, they need to find a stronger team. That's going to be the challenge for whoever's in there next year, because I don't see it being Paul Green.
No. They need someone with experience, who knows what the Origin is about, but I don't think they should bring in Thurston, Cronk, Smith, Slater. I think they'll.
Who's Queen Fittler?
Fun-loving, knows the game. Well, Thurston might get there in a few years. But what Thurston needs to go through is, they act like Fittler came out of nowhere. This bloke struggled at the Roosters and then got fired, and he went bit of a rough period. Mentally, he fucking pulled himself back. But the thing about him that a lot of people know, he coached the 16s, 17s, 18s, 19s, 20s in New South Wales for the last 10 years. That's what he's been doing in the background. And he's not picking these blokes out of the blue and calling them up and going, my name's Brad Fittler, I want you to play for me. He's known them since they were 15. Known them all. He's picked them all for years. And that's what I think Queensland need to find. Someone like that who, one, has had the, knows what it's like to lose as a coach, like he did for the Roosters, but was able to be smart enough to come back and not just go, I want to coach a top-tier team, build himself up, learn from mistakes and stuff like that. Because the biggest thing you can say about Brad Fittler in this series is he's learnt from last year. Thurston was the assistant coach in this game. He literally had no influence on them at all. No. I don't believe. Yeah. So I think he has the potential, but I don't think right now. I'm going to
look up a guy here, but
there would be someone out there. I just think they need to. It'd be great if there was someone who's achieved known failure in the Origin arena. So as much as you can say about Cronk, Smith and all that, they know how to win. But what you got to do to understand Origin is know what it's like to lose. And the emotion behind losing and stuff like that, because knowing that is just as important as knowing how to win in Origin, because it makes you want to win so much more.
I was looking up Jason Hetherington because he's coached the women's Origin, but I was trying to find what he's done with regards to coaching men's, and supposedly he's coached the under-18s team. He's coached the Central Queensland Capras in the Intrust Super Cup.
Yeah, that could be someone.
So I was thinking Hetherington would be a pretty decent idea, but I don't know if he's got the track record. But anyway.
Bring Kobe in.
We'll do a preview of Game 3 as it comes up. I've got some ideas of things I would do after being pretty harsh, but I think realistic. I'm probably going to make a lot of enemies out of my opinions on this episode, but that's the difference between a podcast and news limited media and whatever. They say what pleases them, whatever. I just wanted to do some honest opinion and whether you like it or not, let us know. I'm a proud Queensland supporter, but I'll call them out when they need to be called out. And I felt this series had inevitability all over it from almost day dot, and you'd be hard pressed to find a Queensland team winning Game 3. I don't see any reason why New South Wales will let up, but it is what it is. If you're a New South Wales fan, enjoy this as Queensland did for our run, because you may be in for one or things could change in a year. We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to show what kind of character these Queenslanders have in the third game.
Yep.
And to be honest, I wouldn't bring in everyone back for it.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. I'll go over that soon.
So we'll be back at you guys. We'll back out, have our normal Wednesday night show. to preview round 16. So that'll be available Thursday morning on your podcast platforms. Please continue to rate and review us on whatever platform you get your podcast on. Share us around. That'd be really cool. And yeah, it's everything from me. I'm pretty wrecked after all that.
See you.
Bye.